lot of people praise the book Pride and Prejudice, but is it really worth reading? If you don't know what the book is about, it's basically a love story between the two main characters, Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, who absolutely hate each other in the very beginning, but slowly over time they start to warm up to each other and they eventually fall in love. But the book also talks about things like family, social status, power, money, things like that, and all of these things play a role in how the characters interact with each other. Keep in mind that this book takes place back in like the early 1800s when people were really focused on getting married, but also specifically focused on marrying a really rich guy who could support them and take care of them. So back then, marriage was kind of more like a business deal because this is how people gained social status and power. So the whole premise of this book is that our main character, Elizabeth, doesn't want to get married for money and power. She wants to get married because of love, which to everyone else around her is really crazy, and they all think that she's just being dramatic and she's asking for way too much. So besides this book being so beautifully written, I think it's also good because it's still relevant today. I think a lot of people nowadays still think of marriage as a way to move up in status or a way to gain something from that person, rather than marrying because you're in love and you can't imagine your life without that person. So even now, I find Elizabeth's character to be really inspiring because she's rejecting these social norms and she's refusing to do things that she knows are not going to make her happy. And she's also basically saying that she's either gonna marry out of love or die alone, even though everyone else around her is following the status quo. So when I read this book, I was really moved by Elizabeth's character, and I think it's also a good reminder for us girls to not settle for a guy who doesn't really love us. Something I also really love about this book is that it shows us how love can be expressed in more than one way. So on one hand, we have Mr. Bingley, who's the kind of guy who is always going to be by your side and he's always expressing himself towards you. But then we also have Mr. Darcy, who seems a little bit colder on the outside, but on the inside, he's always thinking of you and he's trying to show how he feels through these big gestures because he's just really not that great at socializing. So even though both of these characters are very deeply in love, they're expressing it in different ways, which I think is proof that love is not one definable thing, because everyone has their own ideas on what love is, and they have their own ways of showing their love for another person. Also, this whole book just proves that classics don't have to be boring because it's filled with plot twists and drama and betrayal, confessions of love. It's really interesting to read, and also the way that Jane Austen writes about love is so perfect and so romantic. I mean, as far as romance novels go, I think this one is definitely one of the best. So yes, in my opinion, this book is definitely worth reading. I mean, it's one of my favorite books of all time. The writing is beautiful, the story is intriguing and inspiring. So if you like love stories or stories of rebellious and inspiring women, then this book is definitely a good one for you.